Hey, everybody, it's Dwight here to host your quick Monday mental tip. Today, I want to talk a little bit about some guidelines when you are manic. For those of us who have a cyclical mood disorder, particularly bipolar, or its popular sequel, Bipolar II, or just any times where you have a strong bout of impulsivity, ADHD really crosses over and pairs nicely, like a good wine with a meal, with bipolar and manic states. So the first part of this I want to mention is getting to know your cycles, getting to know when do you hit mania or how much do you hit mania. There's hypomania and then there's mania. Well, what it is an elevation in your moods, oftentimes accompanied by racing thoughts, sometimes accompanied by anxiety, but oftentimes also lacking the insight of why I'm making decisions. I may be impulsive, I may have moments of grandiosity, or trying to start a lot of things that I then don't finish. And the difference between that and just kind of regular, maybe ADHD or impulsive starting projects is two main things from my perspective. I think there's two main things that separate it out from just regular impulsive bouncing around attention. One is the intensity with which we embrace the thing. If I'm thinking to myself, wow, I want to research what it's like to live in Seattle, because maybe someday I want to live in Seattle. And I do a bunch, I do deep dives, I do Googling, for many of us, that just might be a normal Tuesday where we, just get really into something and maybe we kind of forget about it later, or maybe it goes in the back of our mind. With a manic episode, we might find ourselves starting to call realtors in that area. We might find ourselves, if we're within a decent driving distance, or even maybe buying a plane ticket, or, basically doing something that's a little more intense, is a pretty good indication that there might be some mania involved. Another aspect that might show that it is manic type of behavior is a lack of efficacy or effectiveness. If I'm doing something and boy, it sure seems like I'm making a lot of progress and I'm not making any progress. Once again, not a perfect rule, but if I'm doing something both intensely and maybe in my research, I'm not really looking up jobs or I'm not really looking up anything real. And let's compare this to maybe a creative effort. Those of us who are creators of one kind or another, if we have manic elements to our personality or manic episodes or even hypomania, we often will get into where it's like, I've got this great idea. I feel like I've done so much work on it. And maybe I did pour, some time into registering a website or starting to write that book or whatever. But maybe I never, ever marketed it. I never, ever shared it. I never, ever actually did any work that would have impacted it. But yet my emotional gut reaction is, why isn't this working? It's so frustrating. And maybe frustrating to the point where it triggers resentments or other things like unto that. One way to identify our manic depressive cycles is to keep in touch with trusted people in our lives. That can be a therapist, but it can also be friends and family who see us and who are honest enough with us that they'll tell us what they're seeing. And educating them a little bit on what it's like for us to be manic can actually help a little bit. And in fact, with partners, if this is done with good communication, which, by the way, sometimes therapy, you bring your partner along to a therapy session or even do a little bit of couples work to sort of hash out these definitions and expectations of how they can actually help you, then you can find a healthy way to communicate if it's not so easy just at home between the two of you. But they can help, and it helps if they know what you expect and they know what you are going through. What you don't want to do is get into a habit where someone's like, I don't like what you're doing. You must be manic. Hey, did you take your meds today? Because you are acting fill in the blank, right? And plus, you want someone to be more specific than just saying fill in the blank for one thing. But you don't want to set up a dynamic where it's like, oh, I'm having a hard time and you made me feel like I'm crazy. Because basically, even if they're correct and I haven't taken my meds today, I'm going to resent that. And so we need a better way to communicate and to kind of prompt. It's not an improper or inappropriate thing for a partner to say, I hope that you're taking your meds to manage your health condition. But we have to find a way to communicate that with respect. So hopefully we get to know when we're manic and we get to know what our patterns are. But some of these little tips are kind of good lifestyle tips to live by, to help ourselves to be a little bit safer when we're in that realm. And the first step, which I alluded to earlier, is making a list of people. It can include a therapist and a partner if that is safe. It can include a sibling, a parent, a really good friend, maybe a couple of different people. That's my safe list of people that I can trust to help me out. Now, one of the rules to kind of make for myself is I want to get used to talking to at least one person on that list, maybe two, whenever I find myself contemplating a big new enterprise or any kind of major life change. It would also be helpful to write down a list of kind of major life changes. These have to do with quitting a job, leaving a relationship, moving, any kind of thing like that. It could also do with how we engage with intoxicants if that's been an issue for us. And I really want to, maybe I really want to get stoned and I haven't for a while. That would be a pretty major change to my day to day, for example. And so if I have a list of safe people and if I have a list of things that I need to check in with someone about, what I want to do is I want to try to make a habit of doing that all the time. So if I'm doing anything on this list or I really want to do anything on this list, I have a rule for myself. I need to talk to at least 1 to 2 other people on my safe list. Another thing to institute is kind of a 24-hour rule that if I want to do any kind of decision, and I really, really want to, I want to start practicing. Once again, practicing when I'm not manic to get into the habit of trying to say, I want to think about this tomorrow and see how I feel tomorrow. Okay. And chances are, if I find that I do it anyway, or that I can't really avoid it, or I'm having a really hard time, at least sometimes that can help us to recognize the mania, either during or after the fact. And when you're able to flag something and identify it after the fact, you are one step closer to being able to identify it the next time you are in it. Or at least a future time that you're in it. You might need to practice this for a while. And one of the things about this kind of condition is it really is a lifelong condition that we have to deal with. Now, those of you who listen to the podcast, you know that when I come across, I have guests who come on who have different feelings sometimes about psychotropic medication and the pharmaceutical industry. You've heard my position on that, which is that there is certainly, things that we should always kind of consider. I don't trust big industries either as well. However, at the same time, I'm very pro medical intervention. Many medications that have been put out there are very, very helpful. And it's helpful to talk to a doctor, particularly a specialist who is either a psychiatrist or a psychiatric nurse practitioner. One of the reasons for this is that we can learn what they are seeing that works. I myself take a mood stabilizer. I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to come across as recommending anything. I'm not a doctor, and this is not medical advice on this show. It's just, talking about it. But I will say, without that medication, I noticed a significant difference for the worse. And it was something that I, got into taking at a time in my life where I really needed it. And it made a big difference and continues to make a big difference for me. So another kind of tip that is built into this is know for sure how you feel and what you're experiencing with your medication. They do say that many people, the data used to be that it took years on average. It took a few years for people to find a good balance of medication. And that certainly can be true. I think it's been cut down a little bit and it seems a little more effective. There are a few medications that seem to work a bit better than the old-fashioned ones. And also one of the things with many mood stabilizers, and don't quote me on this is just the observation I have of other people's experience and my own, is that they don't necessarily have as much of the adjustment time period. You usually can tell if they're working and how much they're working. What my prescriber said to me once is that if the meds are working how they're supposed to, it should reduce almost all of the manic episodes and behaviors, and it should tamp down or help with at least 80% plus of the depression. Now, what has my own personal experience been? There's some truth to that. I would say that the hypomania still persists at times. I have to be aware when I'm getting into that low-level type of mania things a little bit. I'm one who I tend to have that symptom of starting projects that I either don't finish or I think I've done a lot on and get very frustrated that they're not working. And then when I sort of get more regulated, I say, oh, well, I didn't really actually do that much to make that project work. And so I've learned to try to recognize that. And that leads into another little tip, which is when you aren't manic, and think back to, okay, what do I do during a period of mania? What are some of the specific ways that those symptoms manifest themselves in my life? If you can also make that list, a lot of list making today, by the way. I'm a big list fan, so, do with that as you will. But if you're able to make a list of what kind of things you tend to do when you are manic, then that's a good thing to run through and say, the other day when I was doing this thing, or hopefully I can even catch it right then and go, am I doing any of these things on this list? Now, once again, my safe person list comes in because if I have safe people who can kind of help me answer that question, I have to understand that when I am in a manic state, I am less likely to identify it. If it's like, am I going off kind of without really knowing what I'm doing? Am I making trying to make a major life decision very, very quickly? I look at my list and it's like, oh, I do that when I'm manic. Yeah, right. I'm not doing it now, though. That is very, very normal when we're going through a manic state. So that's where trusted people. And once again, if I'm able to make a rule that I can keep for myself that says if I'm contemplating something on this list, if I even have a maybe about something on this other list, I need to go to, once again, 1 to 2 people on my safe people list and kind of get their feedback on it to see what they think. None of these are magical bullets or anything that will make everything better immediately or anything like that. There's really no such thing as that. But what it really boils down to is getting to know yourself. And I want to add this on there, which it's important to know that it is okay for us to have these struggles. This is not a moral failing, right? This is a medical situation. This is a biochemical reality that we are dealing with. Many elements help with that. As I mentioned, medication. Also, do I have an ongoing relationship with a psychotherapist? I might find that I don't need to meet with that person very much. But my own experience has been that I really value having some sessions or contact regularly with a psychotherapist of my own, because this kind of ongoing monitoring of my health and also just kind of keeping them in the loop a little bit about my life is helpful when and if I have a specific need. So that's just something that I'll sort of advocate as well. I know that there is a tendency to lean towards very short-term therapy. There's a lot of focus on kind of goal-oriented coaching, solution-focused therapy. This is one of those situations in which I think some long-term relationship building with a therapist who we maintain can actually be quite helpful. So there you have it. This is the Monday mental tip for this week. There will be a full episode airing tomorrow on Tuesday. And I hope that you've enjoyed this and enjoy that. One quick thing is that we're wrapping up July. I want to mention one more time that munchausensupport.com is where you can go to find this month's Charity of Focus, which, as you may have heard the episode with Andrea Dunlop talking about her sort of investigative work in podcasting into Munchausen by proxy syndrome and the dynamic of medical child abuse. She has co-founded this with some of the leading experts in that field. This is an organization that primarily puts education out there and is very pro research and trying to learn more about this dynamic to protect children. And boy, it'd be nice to have a handle a little bit more on what to do to kind of try to rehabilitate and things like that. But their main focus is protecting children. And so you can go there to do that. If you join the Patreon, not only do you get access to lots of bonus materials that are coming out more and more, but also our weekly history deep dive into mental health history. But you also can know that 50% of your donation in perpetuity, as long as you are a Patreon subscriber, will go to the Charity of Focus in the month that you signed up. So if you do sign up here before the end of July, 50% of your donation will go towards that cause of medical child abuse. Little teaser for the month of August, we're going to be highlighting an organization that uses art to help children in need and underprivileged situations to, help to have a creative outlet that helps them with some of their problems. So that will be coming up in, a week or so here when August is going to be starting. I would be remiss if I didn't plug real quick that at the end of August, that is August 29th, particularly, it's Thursday, there's going to be the annual Broken Brain live stream for Opioid Overdose Awareness, which International Opioid Overdose Awareness Day is at the end of August as well. And so that's something we've been doing for 3 years. You can listen to it, you can watch the live stream, or you can join. I'll be live streaming for about 5 hours. Got some former guests and experts who are going to be joining. Got some cool things to share with y'all. And you do too. If you would like to join, there will be a link active at dwighthurst.com/live during the broadcast, where if you click on that, you will join the live feed with me. Sort of like a live call-in show, except you can turn your camera on if you want to be visually there, but either one, audio, video, both. If you think you don't have anything to add, that's not true. You can come on and just share your support, promote awareness if you have a story that you'd like to share. The focus this year is going to be on relapse prevention, but also relapse processing and relapse recovery for those who do. So a lot of that will just have to do with things that we do to maintain sobriety and to avoid relapse, but also how to deal with relapse in a safe way. And what does it mean when we say relapse is a normal part of life and part of recovery? Well, that's very important to know what that means so that it doesn't cause shame, but it also doesn't set us up for relapse in and of itself. So that will be Thursday, August 29th. I'm going to be plugging that a lot because I want to make sure people remember when it's coming up. So go to dwighthurst.com/live. There's already information there about what times and the links to the social media. And the link to join will be coming. Thanks very much. Have a great week.